What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Space Arena Ground Arena, where we cover Star Wars Unlimited from the ground into space. I'm BananaCrapshoot. Mr. Ben is not able to join us tonight, but with me, back from Worldly Travels, is Dan Kennedy Hawk. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm back from the Outer Rim. No more of this back-to-back star hopping. So excited to talk about some cards today.
Yep. So real quick, this is our Star Wars Podcast Day episode. What Star Wars Podcast Day is? It's the celebration of the anniversary of the first Star Wars podcast. So this is the 25-year celebration of the Jedi Talk, which premiered February 7th, 1999. We were invited to join and be a part of that since we cover a Star Wars card game. So we're very happy to do that. Just real quick, for those that might be joining us for the first time, my favorite character is Cad Bane, depending on the week, and favorite movie, Revenge of the Sith. What about you, Dan?
Ooh, I'm always a droid guy, so I'm going to go with R2-D2. But my favorite movie was Phantom Menace. Really liked that one. Grew up with it.
Nice. All right, so what we're going to do for our normal episode part, we are going to go over card reveals that we haven't seen, or that we haven't gone over the last few weeks. So we're going to start with Chirrut. He's a blue or vigilance heroism leader. On his front side, it says action, give a unit +2 health for the phase, and then he deploys on 5 resources, becomes a 3/5 with the ability. During the action phase, this unit is not defeated by having no remaining HP. What are your thoughts?
I like Chirrut. I think that he could be a pretty interesting, cool combo-y vigilance leader. I think his ability is pretty cool. Like, it's going to help units stick on the board when you use it on them, so you can pick a unit and kind of give them a little more survivability. But it's going to be tricky since it goes away at the end of the phase. You're kind of giving them that temporary boost, and then you either have to play an upgrade to give them more HP or heal them before the end of the phase, or they might end up going away anyway. Could be a pretty cool draft sealed leader because he's going to help all your units stick around a little bit more. Like each unit you play each turn goes a little bit up curve on defense, which could be cool. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he has a lot of synergy with the Force and and being in vigilance heroism. There's some good synergy there. His action definitely helps on the front side. Make some units stick around that would normally die like in a trade, but you got to sequence it right because of it being in action.
Yep.
I think he's pretty cool. All right, we'll move on to Confiscate. 1 cost event, neutral, just straight up defeat and upgrade. What are your thoughts
What
on that one?
I think it's good. I think it's needed. Otherwise, upgrades can get too out of control. It makes upgrades super fleeting, right? Especially with persisting damage. If you put an upgrade on your character to keep them alive, your opponent might be able to get rid of that upgrade for 1 cost. And I think shields and experience are technically upgrades in this game. That's something that a lot of people will miss. So they should pay attention to, oh, they could get rid of my shield for 1 and then swing into my unit. Like
Yeah,
the art.
I think other than this card, the only upgrade removal is in aggression. So this is
Yes.
a good option to give that access to the whole pie, if you will.
It's a
So,
needed neutral card, I think.
yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And we'll move on to Don't Get Cocky, 4 cost hunting event. It says choose a unit 1 at a time. Reveal cards from the top of your deck until you choose to stop or have revealed 7 cards. If the combined cost of the revealed cards is 7 or less, deal that much damage to the chosen unit. Put the revealed cards on the bottom of your deck in a random order. So you pay 4 to play Blackjack. And if you don't go over 7, you can deal that much damage to a unit.
So that's pretty cool. It's definitely risky. You're going to want to build your deck around this to make it work, probably. It's a fun card. It's a cute reference. What do you think?
I don't see this seeing much competitive play, I guess. You got to be able to control the outcome. And I don't know how you do that right now, you know? If you could control that, what those cards were, then I'd feel better about it.
Yeah, you could do something cute with R2 or C3PO where you kind of know the top of your deck, but that's a lot of combo pieces coming together. especially if you're going to go more than one card in.
Yeah.
And even then, 4 for 7 damage doesn't feel like a great payoff.
Force chokes 2 for 5. Open fires 3 for 4.
Yeah, so I guess if you can hit the 7, maybe it's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the only cunning event that actually deals damage to a unit.
That's
right?
true.
Everything
Gotta
else
pay
is like
attention to what color it's in.
bounce or exhaust. So
It'll be pretty nice and sealed, right? You're not going to run that many things that cost 8 or more, most likely. So just something that puts a little bit of damage out.
yeah. Oh, I guess if you ran like if you did like a Han deck and you ran nothing but like 3 and ups, then you could probably hit pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, better than I originally gave it credit for. Next up, we have the Reinforcement Walker. It's a ground unit. It is command. 6 power, 9 health, vehicle walker. So anybody can use it as long as you have command. And when played /on attack, look at the top card of your deck. Either draw that card or discard it and heal 3 damage from your base.
I like that it's when played and on attack. So if you get removed from the board immediately, you still get something out of it. It's a pretty cool ability. I don't know if it's fast enough to have a ton of impact versus other 8 drops that are, game changing. But card draw's good.
Yeah, card draw is good, and the option to heal. I mean, this is obviously a late game card, being 8 cost. I like when our expensive units do something when they're played. So I like that it is the when played /on attack, like you said. Being able to use this in a heroism deck feels wrong, but that's okay.
Chewie's driving it. Don't worry.
Chewie's driving it on Scarif.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Chewie. Do you have any other thoughts on the Reinforcement Walker before we move on?
No, we can jump on. I can read a few if you want on the next slide here.
Sure.
So I think we've got Bendu up first, which is a 6 cost double vigilance card. So double vigilance is pretty cool because it kind of starts to tie you into a mono like deck. 4 attack, 7 hit points with Sentinel. On attack, the next non-heroism, non-villainy card you play this phase costs 2 less. What are your thoughts?
In a mono vigilance deck, I like the Bendu a lot. Thematically, it makes sense. His ability, where you're not playing a heroism or villainy card, right? He's the one in the middle, so it makes sense. Being able to play like a takedown for 2 seems pretty strong. If you're playing mono vigilance, it's more of a slow control deck anyway. So your things like takedown and vanquish, and it binds all things. I think that's
Yep.
single color, so you can get some good value out of that ability. And he's a pretty decent unit. Like his stats are fine for 6, so I like Bendu.
I like him. I'm glad he's double vigilance. I don't think I would be willing to pay 8 for him if I didn't go in double vigilance, but he fits the double vigilance theme well. And Sentinels are always appreciated. So I'm pretty happy. The theme's great, obviously.
Oh yeah, I can also hear the card. That's always a plus for me. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like when Chopper was revealed, like you could hear the card. Same thing here.
Yep.
I can hear Bendu like yelling at Kane and Jarrus, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Ground unit. I don't know if I said that. The next unit is a 4 cost command unit, not with villainy or heroism, just command. Escort Skiff. It's a unit ground, 4 attack, 4 hit points, underworld, vehicle, and speeder traits. While you control another command unit, this unit gains ambush, which means after you play this unit, it may ready and attack an enemy unit. What are your thoughts?
I like this one. I think this is something Command needed as an aspect overall. And getting the ambush is not hard to do when you're playing a bunch of other Command units, right? So I think this is a very solid word drop for Command that they needed, is what I think.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty strong card and kind of a sneaky way to encourage you to lean maybe more into command than whatever your other color might be, but not tying you into a double command deck, which is pretty nice. I'm a big fan of ambush on this guy.
Yeah, that's key.
Next
Because
is a four. Oh, yeah, you go.
I was gonna say because command doesn't have access to great removal, right? So their removal right now is like overwhelming barrage and strike true,
Yep.
which isn't great. So having like escort skiff and like palace that are able to ambush in and act as pseudo removal is pretty good.
Stat line's pretty good, I think.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fine.
The next card is a 4-cost event with vigilance and heroism as its aspects. The Force is with me with a Force traded event. Choose a friendly unit and give 2 experience tokens to it. If you control a Force unit, also give a shield token to the chosen unit. You may attack with the chosen unit.
There's a lot happening with this card.
Yeah.
I think when you play it at the right time, it's very strong. I just don't know how many times that's gonna happen. You know, like I haven't seen it like in practice yet. Um, but the ability on it, there's a lot going on, and it's all good stuff. So this has to be a good card, right?
It sort of does everything that Vigilance wants to do, and it's conveniently got Chirrut art on it, and it seems to work really well with his ability, right? It's going to give you that plus HP to keep whatever unit you've buffed alive even after the end of the phase. Throws out a shield, lets you get a little bit of tempo so that you can sort of keep the initiative to be able to use Chirrut's ability faster. So I think that it's a solid card in the deck that it's designed for.
Right. If you're building that deck, it's definitely solid. And there's a lot of force units that Vigilance Heroism has access to. So being able to get the shield um, isn't hard, I don't think.
Yeah, and when it says you may attack with the chosen unit, that unit still has to be an eligible attacker, so that unit has to not be exhausted.
Correct. All right. Next up, we have Rook. He's a 5-cost command villainy ground unit, 3 power, 6 health, Imperial. The shielded keyword. So when you play it, he gets a shield token. And then his ability is when this unit deals combat damage to a non-leader unit while attacking, defeat that unit. What do you think?
I like that he's shielded. It means he's going to get at least one use of his ability off. The trigger there is really long and bold, so it's when this unit deals combat damage to a non-leader unit while attacking. So you have to be attacking with Rook. You have to deal damage, so you can't hit into a shield or something like that, and you have to be attacking a non-leader unit. But when you do that, you basically have first strike, so your 3 attack can turn into 9 or 8 and kill that walker, which is pretty good. Um, I'm not sure how I feel about that for the cost. I do think it's good for command to get some of these, like you called it, I think soft removal or pseudo removal, these units that turn into removal. That's a cool archetype for command.
Yeah, I think like his ability is very strong. It's just I don't know if he's like if you're playing him, I think you want him to swing up, right? So
Yep.
you want to play him and defeat like a 6, 7, or 8 cost unit. And I don't know how many times that's actually going to happen. But his ability is very strong. It's just I don't know how relevant it's going to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it could work well in a vigilance command villainy deck if you have a lot of shields so that you can try to get many uses out of his ability. But
Right.
with it having to be on offense, you're typically getting that off once a round after the first round he's played. So I don't expect him to stick around for 3 potential rounds. That seems stretching it.
Right. And I mean, he has the same, or he's a target for the energy conversion lab. So you could give him ambush. So you could like
Hmm.
ensure you get that off one time at least. But yeah. Any other thoughts on Rook?
No, these next 2 I'm excited for though.
All right. Next up, we have 4-cost cunning unit, ground unit, Gamorrean Guards, 4 power, 4 health. While you control another cunning unit, this unit gains Sentinel. Sentinel, the reminder text is units in this arena can't attack your non-Sentinel units or your base. So
It's
what are your
exactly
thoughts on
what
the...
I expected out of Gamorrean Guards. Theme is perfect. I like the conditional Sentinel. I think that this is a really cool way to push deck building towards a mono deck without forcing it, so you can still splash some powerful cards from another aspect. So I'm a big fan of how this is worded and how the skiff is worded to not force you into a mono decision with your base, but to still
Mhm.
reward you for balancing your deck in that direction.
Right. So like, if you were trying to build like that mono yellow cunning Boba Fett deck, for the 4-drop spot was like, there was nothing there, right? So then we got Jabba, and Jabba's okay, but the tricks aren't super relevant with Boba Fett, I don't think. And then Jabba's basically a wet noodle out there, right? With only
Yep.
like 2 power as your 4-drop. So I think the Gamorrean Guards is a great option for that Boba deck to fit in that 4 slot, because when it's always going to have Sentinel, and it's going to hit back with a little bit of oomph, right? It has more power than the card we just looked at, Rook, which is a 5-drop. So
Yep.
I think Gamorrean Guards are very, very solid units.
I like them. They remind me of the skiff. Good stat line.
Yeah,
Powerful enough attack to be able to poke back on your 4-drop.
and it fills an E2 because like Cunning doesn't have aspect to a lot of Sentinel. So this is, it helps them with that too.
Yeah, for sure.
So I like that design space where it's conditional, but you have access to it. Like that's a good space. Next up we have Baze Malbus. He's a 4-cost vigilance ground unit, 2 power, 5 health with grit, and grit means he gets +1 power for each damage on him, and then while you have the initiative, he has sense. So what are your thoughts on Baze?
I think this goes right into a Chirrut deck, right? We were just saying that
Mm-hmm.
Chirrut wants initiative. Chirrut can pump him up to 7 hit points, and then you can, delay with your attack so that people have to attack into Baze, building up his grit even more. I think grit's going to be a really cool keyword to play with, and like the games I've played with grit characters have been really fun because the damage persisting means that sometimes when you get the initiative, you can have a giant attack with a unit as like the first swing of the turn, and it can really shift games.
Yeah, grit. I'm excited to see what else we see like in that keyword, because we don't have too many units with it at this point. So, but
Just
I
a
think,
handful.
yeah, but I think I agree with everything you said about Baze. I think he's solid. I think he goes right in a Chirrut deck, and even like any, um, I think a bunch of vigilance decks, unless you're trying to run some sort of trait synergy, I think you're always going to at least consider Baze, because he's just a decent unit overall, even without
And it's
Chirrut.
that 4-drop spot. He doesn't have 4 attack, but the 5 health is pretty good, and I think the Sentinel thing is pretty key.
Right, and the grid will make up for that power where it should, unless
Yeah.
he gets wiped. But yeah, you want to take the next slide then?
Yeah, that works. So we've got General Krell, a 5-cost double command unit. So again, pushing us into that mono space. 5 attack, 4 health, Force, Jedi, and Republic traits. Ground unit, obviously. And has the text, each other friendly unit gains when defeated, you may draw a card. What are your thoughts?
I'm not like overly impressed with this card. It's mono. It has an ability. It's there. It's definitely an ability, but I don't think we have the card pool currently to benefit this ability in the deck that I think he wants to be in. So I'm kind of underwhelmed by
I'm
Krell.
higher on Krell. I think that Command has a lot of really low cost, cheap units. And one of the problems in this game with swarming with cheap units is you run out of cards in your hand. But on turn 5, if you have a couple low cost units on the board and you stall for a bit, until your opponent passes or you get the chance to like attack with all your units. If you drop Krell and then send all your units into something, even if they get wiped out, they all replace themselves in your hand. So I don't think that, like, once Krell comes out, he's not going to last for multiple turns. But you get into a situation where you play him and then turn like a trade into a trade plus a card, which is a big deal for Green Swarm. The double command might limit how much he gets played, but I think that he fits into that double command style deck. But I could be wrong. We'll see. I also really like the art.
Good art.
All right, next we've got a 4-cost space unit, Strafing Gunship. It's a cunning unit with 3 attack and 4 health, so not our 4/4 stat line. Underworld vehicle and fighter traded. This unit can attack units in the ground arena from the space arena. While this unit is attacking a ground unit, the defender gets -2 attack, -0 hit points.
I really like this card. I think the art's pretty cool. I love the ability. Now the 4-cost unit only having lesser stats is kind of what we expect from space units. They're not as efficient, but when this thing is attacking something in the ground arena, it becomes much more efficient because you're not getting punched back near as hard. I really like the ability on this. I just like this card overall. I think it's very solid.
I like the theme, and I agree. I think this card is like a huge momentum shift for a cunning deck. You drop this in space, the next turn you start cleaning up ground while building your presence in space, forcing your opponent to play more things over there. And it plays into the whole cunning idea of having tricks and your opponent not knowing where your focus is going to be. So, a big fan. Our last card on this slide is a 2-cost vigilance unit, ground unit, Guardian of the Whills. 2 attack, 2 hit points, force fringe trait, with the ability the first upgrade you play on this unit each round cost 1 less.
So I think it's a pretty solid unit overall. Like the stats aren't great, but being able to play like a Jedi lightsaber on this for 2, right? So then it becomes a 5/5 with the ability to negatively affect your opponent and give them like -2/-2 for the combat, right?
Yeah.
I think it enables some cool things. So like in that blue vigilance, if you're playing this, I'm thinking more of the heroism side. You have Guardian of the Whills at 2, Yoda at 3, Kanan at 4, and then you have like, I don't know if we have any 5-cost Force users, but then you got Obi-Wan at 6, Luke at 7. Like you can do a whole Force deck in heroism, vigilance, and this really helps round that out. And that also helps if you went into like red, then it enables Force throw almost every turn. So it having that Force trait synergy enables a lot of cool things. So like the stats are kind of whatever, it's the ability and the fact that it's a Force unit that I think are what make me think this card's decent.
Yeah, I think really, really strong for the trait, but I don't see the ability being great. I feel like so far the games I've played where I've tried to stack upgrades onto a character, right? If you want to trigger this more than once, you're putting a lot of risk into one character.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you're trying to hit Guardian, Yoda, Kanan, and build up the curve with Force, that's not leaving you a lot of upgrades, a lot of resources to play upgrades. So then you're playing 1-cost upgrades, and those aren't as good as, the Jedi lightsaber and things like that. There's probably going to be some sort of upgrade deck you can do with this, but with things like takedown and other things existing, it makes me nervous.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, what do we got up next?
Next up, we have a 1-cost event, Rebel Assault. It is command heroism, Rebel tactic traded. Reads attack with a Rebel unit. It gets +1 power for this attack. Then attack with another Rebel unit. It gets +1 power for this attack. And it has some gorgeous artwork.
I think this is a super important card for like a Rebel Swarm command deck, right? If you end up with a ton of units wide, you're going to want to get to choose where those units attack, especially if they're really cheap costing command units. So getting to perform 2 attacks and buff both of them for 1 action can really like put the power on your side of the aggression formula and not let your opponent swing into whatever character you didn't attack with and sort of control your tempo.
Yeah, this card allows you to be the beatdown a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the action compression plus the buff for only one, like I think it's great. Next up we have I Had No Choice. This is another card I can hear. It's a 7-cost event, Cunning Villainy trick. Choose up to 2 non-leader units. An opponent chooses one of those units. Return that unit to its owner's hand and put the other on the bottom of its deck. So for 7, choose 2 non-leader units. Bounce. Your opponent gets to choose them between those 2 units. Or wait, an opponent chooses one of those units. I'm
Yeah, the
confused
opponent
on
chooses which one goes back to hand.
chooses one. Yeah. So the opponent, you pick the 2 units, and then the opponent picks which one goes to their hand, and the other one goes to the bottom of the deck.
Yep.
Got it. What do you think about this?
I think it's a cool card. It's pretty expensive, so you're going to want to be able to remove something that's definitely worth the cost. You are getting 2 unit removals, right? One's going to hand, so it can be played again, but the other's going away. So that can be a huge deal. You're going to want to pick 2 units that are equal in cost and sort of like board state presence. So if you pick like a 6-cost unit and a 1-cost unit, your opponent's obviously going to put the 6-cost back into hand and say, "Who cares about my 1-cost dude?" Um, that being said, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's pretty cool. It's also not forcing you to choose opposing units. So if you have 2 units on the board that both have enters the battlefield effects, and you want to replay one of them, you could force your opponent to bounce one back to your hand. I don't think you'll do that nearly as much as targeting your opponent's units. And you would never want to target one of each because they'd bounce their own to hand and throw yours on the bottom of the deck. But I
Right.
like the theme.
Yeah. I think it's a little expensive. I don't know how much it's gonna see play. I guess if you were playing like a slow cunning control deck, but still at the top, like this is you're trying to turn the corner at this point. Um, I don't know if 7-cost removal is where you want to go.
Yeah, you
I
almost
just
want to play it a few turns later when people are dropping 8 drops and 9 drops.
yeah, I just don't know how much play it's gonna see.
I think it's another sealed card. Any removal is going to be useful and sealed, so you just end up throwing it in your deck.
Yeah. Next up we have the Emperor's Legion. It's a 2-cost command villainy event, Imperial and supply traits, and it reads: return each unit in your discard pile that was defeated this phase to your hand. So what are your thoughts on this one?
I like the card. I like the theme. I don't like that you have to remember what things were defeated this phase. Anytime you have to count on like player memory, I find that to be frustrating because you can easily get into a situation where people are playing pretty slow and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, well, which ones died this phase and which ones died last phase?" Um, so I don't know. I like the idea behind it, and card advantage is huge. So it's probably going to see some play, especially in Imperial Swarm decks.
Yeah, this is kind of like I kind of feel the same way about this card that I do about Krell. Is I see where like they're going with this card, but I don't know if we have the card pool for that deck at this moment in time. If that makes sense.
I would agree.
So I think this card may be in a maybe next set, maybe further down the road, maybe. But I don't see this seeing a whole lot of play right now. You want to take the next slide then?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, we've got a command villainy leader, Emperor Palpatine, Galactic Ruler. Action, spend 1 resource and exhaust, plus defeat a friendly unit. Those are all costs for this action. To deal 1 damage to a unit and draw a card. So card draw and damage on your leader side. Does not flip until 8 resources and has the Force, Imperial, Sith, and Official trait. When you bring this or deploy this leader at 8 resources, he becomes a leader unit on the ground with 4 attack and 10 hit points, so real big butt. When deployed, take control of a damaged non-leader unit. On attack, you may defeat another friendly unit. If you do, deal 1 damage to a unit and draw cards. Basically, gets his ability on attacking. But I think the big thing here is that when deployed. So, what are your thoughts?
Um, I love Palpatine. He's ruthless. He is everything you want Palpatine to be. 10 health because he's hard to get rid of. That when deployed is pretty wild. Stealing like an opponent's 7-drop Vader, or like the thing I have in my head is like when an opponent plays like a 7-drop Luke unit, and you can steal that unit and turn Luke to the dark side and succeed where Palpatine failed in the movie. Like that gets me going. I like this leader very much overall.
Yeah, it looks super fun, super thematic. You're going to have to survive till 8 resources, so figure out how you're going to control the board and not lose before then. But I think we're going to see a lot of Palpatine decks just because of how fun that ability is.
Yeah, and then like defeating the friendly unit, right? So like you can do that to help your ramp by defeating your own super laser tech. You can there's some cheeky stuff you can do if you're playing in aggression with like the ruthless raider, where you can like pay 6 to play the ruthless raider. You get the 2 damage and the 2 damage, and then like you could attack with it and then attack with Palpatine and defeat your own thing to deal now 3 damage and 2 damage and draw a card to replace it. Like there's some wild stuff you can do. I think he's really going to reward good sequencing.
Yeah, I think this goes really well with that last event we were talking about, because that unit gets defeated and then you can return it back to hand, play it again. So if you defeat a unit that, instead of like a when defeated ability like Super Laser Tech, has some enters play ability, you now get to use that enters play ability twice.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems like it could be really good. All right, what's next?
The Ghost. This was the last card. This was just shown off today. This is the last of the Spectre units, I think, unless they give us a Phantom unit. It's a 6 cost Vigilance, Heroism, Space unit. The Ghost. It has 4 traits: Rebel, Vehicle, Transport, and Spectre. 5 power, 5 health, shielded. And when played and on attack, you may give a shield token to another Spectre unit. So what do you think about the Ghost?
Love it. I mean, I think the Spectre trait tribal building is going to be super fun, and it seems like one of the strongest, or at least, most obvious tribal builds they've been building with all the cards we've seen spoiled so far. There's a ton of Spectre units, and this one fits right in. So I'm pretty happy. The stats are a little bit low, but because of shielded, I think you got to do that. And I think it's a really strong space unit for vigilance, but it seems like they really needed something big and chunky to put into space, mid game. So I'm a big fan.
I like the Ghost, and I think its stats are perfectly fine for the space arena. Because if you look at like the Ruthless Raider, which is a 6 cost aggression villainy unit, that has 4 power and 6 health, so it has that 10 composite stat line. If you look
Yep.
at the Gladiator Star Destroyer, that also has a total of 10 composite stats. So it seems like that 6 cost space unit is going to have 10 composite stats. So it's right there. I think the shielded is fine, but I don't know how much you're going to play this outside of a Spectre deck, because you turn off half the card, unless you're playing in a Spectre deck. But I like the
Yeah,
Ghost
if you're
overall.
if you're playing a deck that maybe isn't all in on Spectres, but really focuses on Sabine or focuses on Kanan or something like that, and that's like a combo piece, I could see this being out there to just force your opponent to target Ghost so that you don't get to put a shield on Kanan every round.
Yeah,
But I
that's
think,
fair.
yeah, for the most part, it's going to fit right into that Spectre tribal deck and probably not much else.
I think it's going to be awesome in like draft and seal, like playing this in
Yeah.
your space arena, like at the top end. It's going to feel pretty good, because your opponent's probably not going to have a whole lot to deal with it.
And I like the art. Spaceship art just does it for me. So
Yeah, they really knocked it out of the park with the space art in this game. And that was it for cards.
Nice.
So we're caught up. There's like 20 cards left in this set that we haven't seen yet. This weekend is the community celebration event that FFG invited a bunch of people out for. Crack packs. There's going to be a stream Saturday from like 12 Central Time to like 5 p.m. Central Time with like gameplay and draft and sealed and stuff all happening. So make sure you check that out.
It's gonna be amazing.
And I'll be there, so that's pretty cool too.
Another good reason to check it out.
Another good reason to check it out. So we'll do next week. We're having John Tada on. If you don't know him, he's played card games forever at a really high level, so I'm excited to have him on. We'll talk about some other stuff, some draft and sealed. So I think we should have a good time.
Yeah, should be great.
Do you have anything else you want to tell the folks at home, Dan, before we kick it off
No,
for the
just
night?
make sure to sign up for your pre-release events, right? Ours has a sign up already. I cannot wait.
Yep.
It's gonna be awesome.
I got 2 on the same day. One at noon and one at 5. So
yeah, we have 2 stores that are having them, but they're owned by the same guy, and it's like a chain. So he's doing them on separate days, which is appreciated.
Yeah, very much so. Well, Dan, I'm glad you're back from your trip to the Outer Rim and the spice mines on Kessel. So
yeah. My boss would say go back, but he's not listening, so that's okay.
Yeah, and I think I hit everything we wanted to hit. Remember, Star Wars Podcast Day, 25 years of Star Wars podcasts is pretty crazy.
Pretty amazing.
It is, yeah, and we get to be a part of it. So thanks. But I think that's it. Thanks for stopping by, and Tyler Parrott from FFG has something he wants to tell you.
This is Tyler Parrott from FFG. We will see you in the arenas.